topic today is follow your BL blank blank SS. Now for most of us, we think of that famous quote by Joseph Campbell about following your bliss. He wrote this. He said, follow your bliss and the universe will open doors for you where there were only walls. In other words, do that thing that makes you want to fly. Do that thing that thrills you, that makes time either stand still or fly by. Do that thing that gives you unending joy. And one by one, the obstacles in your way will begin to fall away. Right? Isn't that the most beautiful sentiment in the world? To follow your bliss means to pursue that thing that makes you happy. Look at the definition for bliss: enjoyment, happiness, delight, harmony, and pleasure. Who doesn't want that? But the question is, yes, yes, okay. And now the question is, can we live a life of nothing but enjoyment and happiness and delight and harmony and pleasure? Now, ideally, yes, please, yes. Practically, maybe not so much. Because I want you to think about this for just a minute. If you were in absolute bliss the entire time, I'm not sure you would appreciate it. Does that make sense? You wouldn't know it as bliss. You wouldn't recognize it as this beautiful gift that life has to offer. If you were in bliss all of the time, heaven forbid, it might even become mundane. Like, oh yeah, I'm blissful again. You know? But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be endeavoring to live in bliss all the time, because here's what happens. When we endeavor to live in bliss, when we are doing what we need to do to live in bliss, what happens is that it expands our consciousness. It expands our awareness so that we recognize the bliss when it happens. In other words, who we become as we are following our bliss allows us to know and appreciate bliss when it occurs in our lives. We also talk a lot about this thing called the law of attraction. Perhaps you've heard of it. The law of attraction is what you give out is what you receive back. So when we follow our bliss, we attract bliss to us. That make sense? Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. In my opinion, I live a pretty blissful life. Let me tell you what I mean by that. This is my job. Can you believe that? This is my job. I get to talk to people about people I love, about things I love. I get to teach people tools for transforming their lives. I get to have one-on-one sessions with people where I get to listen to them and possibly help. I get to set a schedule that works for me. That's wonderful. I live in a beautiful home. I live in a beautiful city. I live in a beautiful country. I'm healthy. I get to travel. I mean, really, this may not be your definition of a blissful life, but it sure is mine. But it wasn't always like this. And that's what I'm going to talk about it. But first I want to tell you that, so your definition of a blissful life may be different than this. Only you know what your bliss is, right? And that's kind of the point. Because living a blissful life doesn't mean that you are comparing your life with somebody else's. It's about following your bliss. For instance, do you know that there are actually people in the world for whom camping is bliss? It is my definition of personal hell. But there are other people who absolutely love it. It is their bliss. Now, like I said, I haven't always had this blissful life that I'm living now. I used to be quite the victim. I used to be quite the martyr. I was an unhappy, high-drama person. I know you have trouble believing that I would be unhappy. I used to believe that my lousy life, how did Amy sing it my silly life, my lousy life, was everybody else's fault. It was everybody else's responsibility. It wasn't until I started following my bliss, which included committing myself to living a spiritual life, that everything in my life began to turn around. And I began creating this life that I have now. In other words, when I began following my bliss, I found it. And it found me. There's a beautiful quote by Howard Thurman. Don't ask so much what the world needs. Go out and do what makes you come alive. Because what the world needs most are people who have come alive. I'm going to read that one again because it's so beautiful. Don't ask so much what the world needs. Go out and do what makes you come alive. Because what the world needs most are people who have come alive. So what does it mean to follow your bliss? We're going to actually practice for a moment. What I'm going to ask you to do, if you're willing, is to close your eyes. Just play with me here a little bit, please. So I want you to imagine that you are following your bliss, whatever that means for you. You are doing that thing that makes you exquisitely happy. Now open your eyes again. I know that you don't really want to come back, but here's the beauty of this. You can still listen to me and be in bliss, because bliss is a state of mind. It isn't an activity. You can be in bliss and still do everything and anything that's in front of you to do. So I want to ask, as you were following your bliss in your mind, what did you feel? I'm opening it up. What did you feel? Joy. Peace. Pardon me? Warmth. Freedom. Laughter. Calmness. Love. Empowered. Gratitude. Feeling gratitude. That's where we're coming to. All of them wonderful. But I want to focus on the attitude of gratitude, which brings us to our second BL-SS, and that is bless. When we are feeling blessed, when we are feeling grateful for something or for our lives in general, we are experiencing a state of bliss. So try that now. Close your eyes again. Instead of following your bliss this time, feel blessed or grateful. You should see what I see from up here. Wow, come back, please. It's pretty much the same, isn't it? Yeah. It's because gratitude is one of the most powerful motivators and attractors of good in the world. Eric Butterworth wrote, Thanksgiving, that is the act of giving thanks, is not just a reactionary emotion. It is a causative energy. In other words, feeling grateful sends out a vibration, just like the girl in our picture, sends out a vibration to the universe that attracts back to us more things to be grateful for. And I'm not just talking about, oh, I'm grateful because I have a new car, or I'm grateful because somebody was nice to me, or something like that. I'm talking about simply being grateful for the gift of life. Simply being grateful for the blessing that each one of us has, even in the midst of maybe something not so blissful. We talked last week about the owl experience. Staying grateful even in the midst of the owl experience. Because when we stay in a state of blessing, what will happen is that things will eventually turn around, that energy shifts like we've talked about, and staying in gratitude will attract back to you the things that you can be grateful for. So I have a story to tell you. This is a true story, personal. If you don't know, I used to live in California, and I would go to Las Vegas on a fairly regular basis to take care of things for my uncle, who lived in an assisted living facility. And he was completely bedridden, and he couldn't take care of things for himself. So I had the flexible schedule, thank you God, part of my blissful life, so I was able to go over and take care of things for him. But I gotta tell you, Las Vegas in the heat of summer, by myself, not there for pleasure or fun, is not exactly my idea of a swinging good time. So I was not thrilled to be there on this particular occasion, but I was there to be in service to him, so I kind of got my mind around, okay, it's okay, I'm cool with it, right? So one of the errands that I was to do was to cancel his cable service and return his cable box. You know, is that what we call it here? Okay. Sometimes I use different terms. So I had to do this. Now, little did I know that the simple act of canceling the cable service and returning the cable box was going to be a lesson in gratitude. So I called up the cable company to cancel his service, and I was told that I couldn't do it, that either he had to do it himself or I had to have proof of power of attorney in order to do it. But I didn't have power of attorney yet because that was one of the things that I was in Las Vegas to do. So I was feeling very put upon by this point, right? I dismantled the cable box and I set out to find the cable company so I could return it, even though they told me I couldn't. Anyway. I go into the cable company, and it was absolutely mobbed. Now, you understand, one of the reasons I moved to Canada is because I can't stand the heat. Seriously, where I come from, it's hot. So Las Vegas in the summertime, I mean, all right? So it's crowded. There's like 150 people in there. It's this little tiny little hot, and there's only 7 windows open to take care of all these people, right? So, as I sat there, I became increasingly more resentful. This is a waste of my time. Why am I here? Why are all these people here? Why aren't these people at work? So I'm really having a party. Pretty soon I start noticing all the other disgruntled people around me, and they're all complaining about the wait. They're complaining about the crowd, and they're complaining about the poor customer service. Well, you know what? I don't like being in that state of mind, and I really don't like being around people like that. Oh. So I decided to do what I teach people to do, and that is to have a shift of attitude. So I went into what we call affirmative prayer or treatment, spiritual mind treatment based on gratitude. I literally, in the midst of this crowded, hot little room, I closed my eyes and I began to focus on all the things that I was grateful for in my life, including sitting there in that room with all this time to do some spiritual practice. Understand what I'm saying? It gave me an opportunity to just practice what I preach. And as soon as I switched my thinking from resentment to gratitude, the wait that I had seemed to go by really quickly. I was there for an hour and it didn't feel like an hour, because I was choosing to feel blessed instead of resentful. And that feeling of bliss made that time go by like this, and it was almost blissful. So when my number was called, and I went up to the window and talked to the gal, and I explained to her that my uncle was in assisted living, and I needed to cancel his cable, but I was told I had to have power of attorney to do it, but I didn't have power of attorney yet because that was when... And she said, "How nice of you that you're doing this for your uncle. Not enough people are willing to do that." And then she looked over both her shoulders and went, "Shh." And she proceeded to take care of everything that I needed right then and there. I was in and out of there in 2 minutes, I swear to God. Now, you could chalk that up to luck or to coincidence, but I absolutely know what it was. I know that I attracted that little bit of good to me because I changed my attitude about it. And for the rest of the time that I was there and I ran all these errands and everything, I found everyone there to be helpful and kind and understanding of my situation. I got things done like that because I chose to follow my bless. Now, I wish I could tell you that I do that all the time. Particularly this weekend, but that would not be true. What I can tell you is that I often remember to do it, even if it takes me a little bit of time. And that is because I continue to commit to following my bliss and my bless. Committing to my spiritual growth, my soul's evolution, which allows me to feel both bliss and bless. So it's very, very simple. It's just not easy all the time. So the place to start is right here and right now. Today, choose to do something that follows your bliss. And today, definitely choose to follow your bless. I want to close with a beautiful poem in Sanskrit, written in 450 AD. It's simply called Salutation to the Dawn. It says, "Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the truths and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Such is the salutation of the dawn." So, blessings and blessings to you, and so blessed. I've been here long enough that I know some of the songs in Amy's repertoire, and so when I know what I'm